Well, welcome to the Great Old Ones channel. Here, let me get this squared away. All right, I think everything's not muted or anything like that, so I'm off to a good start. This evening, my plan is to talk about first edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. Of course, this is a Great Old Ones channel. This is what we do. We talk about retro games, and one of those that I've made a habit of talking about on Thursday evenings is first edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. Tonight, we'll move away a little bit from the core books and talk a little about Oriental Adventures. So I brought in, for part of the stream this evening, I'll bring in an expert on Oriental stuff, but failing to find one of those, I'll bring on another guy. Let me go ahead and start bringing in my folks here. First off, well, we all remember, let me go back to, I got to do this correctly now. Bring in Doom Swords in. Of course, he gets the gong for coming in.
Hey, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing pretty good. Thanks. Appreciate you to stop by for at least a couple minutes tonight. I know you're pretty busy on some of the other stuff you got to do, but yeah, we talked about doing some of the Orange books, and I know you wanted to at least say something real briefly about this. So I'll bring you on for a little bit anyway. You can stay as long as you have the ability to do so. But the
yes, sir.
I actually had bringing on wasn't you. Sorry.
Obviously not.
Neither one of us are experts in it. No, I had asked for another character to come join us this evening, and character this man is. Hold on a minute, I got to do this correctly too. At Doom Swords, right? Don't forget to subscribe to his channel. All right, but the one I want to bring in tonight, let me go ahead and get these things clicked in correctly. We will add him to the stage. Please welcome Yang and Zhao, or Shu, right? Yang and Shu.
Zhao or Zhao. Either's good.
Okay. And I'm
General Chow's chicken. It's my
right.
favorite dish.
we always wanted to
Invented
know
in
what happened
America.
to the other three, but we'll let that one go for another stream.
They are no more.
And let me go ahead and we'll move that one. Wait a minute, put that one back on. There we go. Here's the one that we wanted to talk about this evening a little bit. And being a fan of the Oriental cultures, I figured you would be an excellent choice to come in and talk about Oriental Adventures.
Yeah, it was interesting. I never played the original, never took a look at the original Oriental Adventures, and of course now it is forbidden because it has the word Oriental in it. But for me, this was like a very enlightening read, because there's all sorts of things in 5th edition where I wonder, like, well, when did they decide 10 bazillion subclasses for every class was a good idea? And here we go. Here's the origin of that. I can see it right here in 1E.
Yeah.
Yeah, races too. Yes.
Yes.
Hold on a minute. We've got some comments already. All righty, here we go. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. That's what we're talking about, clearly. Yes. So, what I wanted to lead off with, and let me find the page, since you had mentioned it right off the bat, we will start with that one. The class and race. Boom, right? Every character in Oriental AD&D adventure must be a member of a class, right? Clearly, that's none of us. We are all classless here. But a character class is analogous to its profession. It provides a niche for the character to operate within. Players have 10 classes to choose from. Barbarian, where did we say that one before? Bushi, Kansai, Monk, Ninja, Samurai, Shukenja, Shohai, I think, Wuzhen, and Yakuza. Some of these are a little different than stuff that I had remembered, but basically what they put in here. So as opposed to your regular classes, with the exception of one, the Barbarian, they've come up with put some new ones as replacements for.
Well, and Monk too. barbarian
Well,
and
the
monk.
monk was there, yeah. But they remember if you recall, they pulled the monk. They said pull him out of when this book came out. Pull him out of D&D because he doesn't
Oh,
belong, and run him in here in this one. And I completely
interesting.
disagree. I think the monk in AD&D was a fantastic addition. Anybody who's ever read anything to do with medieval history knows.
Hmm.
I mean, like the Silk Road, and even probably a little bit before then, there's always been an exchange of you know cultural ideas and stuff from the Europe all the way to that next. So it is beyond the realm of possibility that a monk could have journeyed to medieval Europe at some point in time. Why would they? I have no idea. You know,
Well, and I have a question right off the bat here because and maybe this isn't the proper time to bring that up because I don't know how long you want the series to go for because there's a lot to unpack in this book. But my question would be to Yang specifically
Hmm.
from the D&D perspective. Do you feel like these are appropriate classes that approximate what you would put in the game if you were trying to develop a Far East or whatever type of system? Clearly, we've got barbarians in the sense of what Mongols, that kind of thing. But beyond those, I mean, I know monks, ninja. Everybody knows ninja, samurai, shukenja. What's that? Sohei. The
Hmm.
Wujin is the magic users. Do you think this is a fair approximation if you're trying to be
Um,
take an Occidental world and place it into an Oriental one?
it's not bad. Let me start off with that. Um, I think the book itself is a little bit schizophrenic on what it wants to be. And I think you can sort of see that in stuff like this. Like, I think they took a look at what they had with regular AD&D and they said, okay, we want the equivalent, but Oriental themed. So they kind of took what's there. Like, I guess Bushi would just be a regular fighter.
Mhm.
Samurai, I think, are supposed to be the equivalent of cavaliers.
Cavaliers, yeah.
Uh, yeah, and then Shukenja, I guess, are supposed to be clerics, but I do like that they specify. It's like clearly most people are not going to be familiar with most of these terms, so they kind of specify a little bit more, like with the Shukenja. So they act as teachers, advisors, and healers to whoever need their aid. Like, I think that that's something. Certainly now it's become lost to clerics, but even I think in AD&D, it was more like, well, you kind of know what a priest or a preacher should do, as opposed to like they sort of spelled it out. And I do like how they spelled it out. I think they have, I think it's pretty good. You can have a fantastic campaign based on all of these classes. So I have no specific complaints about them other than like when you sort of switch it up and make everything sound fantastical, like the Bushi, they're professional soldiers from all ranks. They just sound a little boring. So, like, do I want to be the boring class? Like, it sounds more boring to me than fighter does compared to the other classes in AD&D.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, would that be the correct term for like
Well, it depends on what you mean.
mercenaries?
See, I would have thought it would be like Ronin, which would be like
Right, right.
masterless samurai. Um, but I guess Bushi would be more like probably like a professional soldier in the ranks. And that's kind of
Right.
like another like one of the other issues is they just sort of like sucked in a bunch of it would be like if you had medieval Britain versus medieval Russia and medieval Italy, and like you just mashed up all the stuff, which could be very cool. But in some ways they're all kind of their own thing, just stuck together. Because like Sohei might be a Japanese word. I don't think so. Most of the Bushi Kenzai Samurai are Wujen. That's definitely Chinese, and Yakuza is Japanese. So they're like building on different traditions, which is great. Although it does make me wonder, like what happened to the Japanese sorcerers? Like they didn't have any, or
Looks like they were picking pieces that they liked
Yeah.
out of each individual set, right? And if you look,
Yeah.
okay, where's the Koreans in this one, right?
Right,
yeah,
right.
and to me, it's one of the issues like where I say it's kind of schizophrenic. Like in some way, like okay, so I think of three types of books really for D&D. One is you have like sort of an instruction book, which would be like a player's handbook, a DMG, and a monster manual, and then other books that impart rules. So even like Unearthed Arcana, and then you have a setting guide where like boom, here's all the coolness that you can have in this land, but there's no particular story. And then the third one is a campaign guide. You have setting plus you have like prescribed adventures in these settings. Like to me, this is trying to split the difference between 1 and 2, between a rule book and a settings book. It doesn't quite achieve its goal in settings because we never get like a specific setting for this. So if it was like,
This is
Well,
their-
Caricature,
yeah, this is
but
their
that's just all
Caricature, right?
that's just all bundled up as like a ball of Play-Doh, is simplifying various cultures, right?
yeah,
Although they should have put more, if you're going to make it a settings book, it should have been more of Caricature in here than they really did include.
yeah.
Yeah, and I apologize for interrupting because that was
no.
fascinating, Yang.
See, we got to bring somebody on here that's smarter than both of us together. So,
But yeah, you
which
know,
isn't hard to achieve.
if they had framed it a little more like, okay, here's like either it's one country and you have region A, B, and C, and like, you know, the wizards are from B and the other people from A and whatever, you know, then it would like kind of make sense. I think to the end user. Whereas if you're not familiar with Asian history and Asian cultures to begin with, I think it can be a bit overwhelming.
Here you go. There's a good term for it. An incomplete toolbox as opposed to a setting book. Yeah.
Yeah, and they could have actually split it up, right? As you're saying. I mean, I think I get what you're talking about, but let's look back to Unearthed Arcana for an example. I mean, it's not a specific example that's directly analogous to this, but Unearthed Arcana had in the beginning part, it had, hey, this is the DM stuff. And after a certain page, which escapes me, this is the player stuff.
Yeah.
Right. They could have taken this book and ironically, they did a lot of times in OD&D and with supplements, they could have said, hey, here's the campaign set. Greyhawk Adventures, Orange Spine did that pretty well. It said, hey, here's the rules section. Here's the campaign section, you know, the story section. And, you know, yeah, I agree. They should have done a better job with that.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what you're saying. Like okay, this is how we differentiate from normal AD&D. You know, this is all the new stuff, and then okay, here's the settings, and here's how you apply the new stuff. I think that would be easier for a lot of people.
What if they had? What if they had also said, which most AD&D and D&D books should have done, in my perspective? What if they had also said, here's an example. Ibushi is but one example of what is the stereotypical or prototypical fighter. You might have these others. You know, and same thing with the Wujin. That way, you know, it's not specifically Chinese related. Yeah. I love this book, but you've already brought to light several things that could have been done different that I hadn't considered.
And
Well, go
I
ahead.
think part of the thing too is you have to consider the time. Like, in my opinion, and I could be totally wrong, it's when you read through it, it's like mostly Japanese stuff. And I think it's mostly Japanese stuff because when it was written in the 80s, the US had the most access to Japan of all the Asian countries. China still at that point was pretty much closed off to the US. So unless you're talking about people from who lived there in the 30s, there wasn't a whole lot going on. Like you see that in entertainment with the Fu Manchu and Ming the Merciless and all that. And then once China shuts with the communists, like it just stops. And then a lot of it goes over to Japan. Korea hadn't really developed itself yet. They were just in the process of getting their stuff together. So like the Japanese stuff would have been the easiest for them to research. And therefore, I think to reproduce, especially if you hadn't lived over there. And then a lot of the Chinese stuff, like I'm 80% sure, and maybe one day I'll get to talk to some of Gary's kids, but it seems like the Chinese stuff comes from kung fu movies.
Yeah, I believe that was even part of one of the statements that you're in it. The popularity of those kung fu movies was what drove them to bring this stuff to light together.
Yeah.
So, okay, and we all know that is, the kung fu movies are the most factual
Yes.
places you can go and find East Asian culture. I mean, clearly, right?
I mean, none of it's wrong, but it's just like it's funny because okay, for people who don't know, I have done kung fu for over 20 years. I lived in Beijing for 4 years. I studied it there. I'm the American representative for the family in North America. And it's just funny what people believe about kung fu. It's like if you took the Avengers movie over to China and they're like, oh my God, the American military has these robot suits and like giant muscle men,
Right.
and people who can call down lightning, and people read this stuff and think like it's all true like that. No, it's like there's an essence of truth to it. And then you take it above that because that's what makes cool literature and movies and games. So, nothing was wrong particularly, but there's some truth in all those Hong Kong kung fu films. But what was actually real and not can sometimes get lost in the weeds.
Okay, I didn't see anywhere in here where I could be a drunken master. Sorry, it didn't seem to.
Well, wait till we get the other section.
Right, and
Thank you.
okay, let's not look at this as a class on history or anything like this. Too, this is part of a game.
Sure.
Really, I mean, if we're going to accept magic and all that and fantastic monsters in a European-based game, there's nothing wrong with that kind of stuff in here too. Some of the fantasy elements, even though we saw it on film, some of the fantasy elements from those cultures, bring it in here perfectly at home. Why don't we dive down a little bit further on the page a little bit here? Characters in an Oriental AD&D adventure need not be humans. Oh man, really? Furries are in here too, aren't they? Karatur is a land of exotic customs and exotic creatures. Characters can be members of any one of 4 races: human, Hengayokai, Koroborokuro, or spirit folk. Spirit folk are the ones that I knew the most about, but it's interesting reading about some of these others. And what would you say about those?
Well, other than it leads to furries, I do think that they are great for settings. And this is one thing that I think Oriental Adventures does better than AD&D, which is medieval Europe was full of like fairy folk and like strange creatures like this. And also like anyone who ever asks me, like for my campaign guide, I say it's like more Bronze Age, the religion, as opposed to like when you get to AD&D and you're in medieval stuff, it's usually good versus evil. But in Bronze Age, it's just like everything goes. And if you want an example of how to incorporate something like that into your game, where there's just like a spirit of a rock or a lake or a mountain or whatever, Japanese culture is one of the ways to go, because there's little temples everywhere. People pray to this god, to that god, to whatever, they go about their lives. And it's a great way to integrate that kind of concept into your campaigns. And I think these are great. Again, other than the furries, like to some extent, the Korobokuru, like, do you really need small hairy men that live in the mountains? Like, it's kind of cool. It's kind of like the in Tolkien, what is that, the Drows or whatever. But to some extent, again, it seems like, okay, well, we need a halfling type race. People like halflings.
I don't see how they would be adventurers based on just the way they're described and stuff like this. It's a stretch on that,
Yeah, I think so too. And the spirit folk, I think, are great, except when you get into the game, it's like, would you like to be a changeling or a human? Well, obviously a changeling, unless there's some massive negatives to it, because then you could change your appearance anytime you want. So the spirit folk are kind of like that. Like, I could be a boring guy or like a spirit of a carp or something, like you're obviously going to go for that.
Well, you could play druids in AD&D, so why not, right?
Yeah. But I think the inclusion in the game is fantastic. And, there's all sorts of stories about evil fox women seducing people and, frog spirits and stuff like that. Like, if you include that in your setting, it's amazing.
All right, let's see. The quote, I guess he pulled out of Intriguing Approved Manuscript, short notice, page 2. Yeah, I mean, it's not like they did it in static. They definitely were doing some discussions and stuff before this came out. Yeah. But just they wanted to put together something real quick, and this was not a bad choice. So let's see the other page, and we'll go to the next one here. Right away. Move that one. Add. What another feature that they added in that I really, really like as far as that stuff goes. Family.
Yes.
I think it's an excellent addition. The last time I saw anything related to family before any of this came from, if anybody knew who's Bruce Galloway wrote a book of his own fantasy role-playing game to bash Dungeons and Dragons some because he thought it was nonsensical. And if you've ever tried to play that game, you can't. Anyway. One of the features that he had in there was part of your character generation was your class, your family. You had to find your place in society as part of it, because that was part of that medieval society. I hadn't seen anything in another game until I saw this in this book. I think it's an excellent addition for the role-playing aspect of it.
Yeah, no argument here. And really, they should have taken this and like put it back into like later editions of Greyhawk, and at least the larger city settings, because you're sort of going to be tied to that land, and your position in there is how people are going to treat you. I mean, if you're in like some podunk village in the middle of nowhere, maybe it's less important. But if your family is known for being criminals, and you have to tell the king of Waterdeep that his prime minister is a thief, like, is he going to believe you? Yes or no?
Sure, a lot of stuff comes up with this, and it's like I mentioned earlier, it's a great piece for role playing and stuff. And it gives there's some seeds in here that can be used by a good, clever dungeon master, and players too. Players can run and play with this sort of thing, and backstory, right?
So and that's the thing is, again, we start to see like the seeds of like having an actual backstory for your character,
Mhm.
which has gone way too far recently. But like this is great because I kind of like the backgrounds that are in the player's handbook, or was it the DMG? But like this really flushes it out a lot more, and I think it really gives people who are interested in role play a lot more meat, and it gives you somewhere to go, right? Like if you're like somehow in the nobility, you want to make sure you stay there, and hey,
Right.
maybe you're gonna get a shot at being king or emperor. Whereas, like if you're some lowborn or something, you want to go up. So it's behooving on you to take decisive, heroic actions to save the day.
Mm-hmm. It's definitely an excellent piece. Excellent piece.
Yeah, and something I'd like to say about it is, in reviewing it prior to this episode and reading through it, I found that it's one of the better, if not the best. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's sort of contentious, but it's one of the better written books and one of the better edited books that we get from the entire period, that we get from all of AD&D 1E. You know, Greyhawk Adventures was really good. Dragonlance Adventures was really good. But there's something about this particular book, especially considering that it came out in 1985, that
Mm-hmm.
elevates it in my mind still for reading value,
Mm-hmm.
and for application of rules. It's really a brilliant book in my estimation.
Well, family too was really, really more so. I mean, in medieval Europe, family was a big deal too, as for a certain
Yeah.
part of it. But in for the cultures you're trying to represent here, your family meant, even if it was just a little village, your family meant a whole lot as far as you and stuff goes. Your family was you wasn't personal honor or anything. This it was honor you were bringing on your family. We'll talk about honor here in a minute. Um, but it was all about keeping a good name for your family, which really you didn't see a whole lot of that as far as in a general sense in medieval Europe.
I disagree. I think
Mostly royal families and things like this more than anything. But
but there was really a lot of it. If you actually read writings from the time, and as much as there were diaries, and like how there was an English nobleman who wrote during the War of the Roses, and there was a lot of good stuff. I think the thing that really happened is when Europe started to industrialize, people started moving all over the place, and then you start to lose a lot of your connections. Whereas, like up until really about 100 years ago, Asia hadn't industrialized to the same extent. So this was still really, really important in the way to go. So I think it's because the distance in history is further that we don't think of medieval Europe the same way. But everything that's in here is absolutely would. I mean, you could just lift this wholesale and put it right in your
sure.
standard AD&D campaigns.
Well, I mean, family names. That's where we still use them.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah, we still use family names now. You were the son of somebody. Yeah, better not be the son of a criminal. That didn't help you much. No, but so speaking of honor, let me get this one. We will add in that one page. I thought honor was not that it didn't come into play before. I mean, honor was something they were bringing in. Um, because they brought that as a secondary attribute, characteristic, the character's honor and stuff. We ended up on, and so did comeliness, which ended up in this book as well, which was part of Unearthed Arcana. If you never read Unearthed Arcana, you get some of the worst parts of Unearthed Arcana in this book. Barbarians is one. Comeliness is another. It's ridiculous. But hey, whatever. If that's what they wanted to run with, they could run with it. But your power, wealth, and position, all these mean nothing to a character of the Oriental world if he is without honor. Right? Honor was that was it. Honor was everything. Right? Honor is a reflection of his character and the character of his family, measure of his worth in society, his dependability, his personal character, trustworthiness, his decency, and more. Now, personal character, trustworthiness, decency, honor still mattered a whole lot in the criminal element as well.
Mhm.
So you could twist those definitions a little bit when it came with the criminal element, which they played in here when they threw in, well, the Yakuza, which I think is a little off of what I've learned a little bit about them, but not close enough really to be a thief,
Yeah.
quote unquote. Right. So here's where you get away from them calling them thieves. Now they're Yakuza, not ended up becoming rogues eventually, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But what's your take on this honor part?
Again, I think it's fantastic. But the thing is, like, honor sort of normally comes up when you're playing like a long-term campaign, right? Because your group saves the town, that gives you honor, and then everybody starts to like you, right? Drinks cost less at the tavern, and then you sort of move up to where you're in the regional lord's service, right? Because your honor is high enough. This, I think, it does a great job of codifying that, and like honor was something that the play of honor developed naturally, but this is like a real nice guideline for how you should be using it in your game. So for me, it's aces, and it's kind of interesting because a lot of the earlier stuff, like I've constantly lamented like how religious-based characters are not well played in 2026 because people don't understand like their responsibilities. Whereas like in 1974, when they wrote it, like people would have understood the place of like a church and a priest or a minister and, you know, someone who's in the church, what their rights and responsibilities are. So they never really spelled it out. And same thing with honor, whereas here we can start seeing already like, okay, maybe we need to specify like what we mean when we're talking about this.
Mm-hmm. And I like in part of here, characters don't earn honor points for every adventure they undertake, unlike experience points. Right? They must do something special to earn additional honor points or lose points. Right? And it wasn't just handed out here or there willy-nilly. This is a special reward and stuff that you could get. I made a copy of that table too. I thought it's an excellent table. Just some good examples of honor that you could claim. Where is it? Honor awards. Now, awards could be negative as well, right? Accused of a crime, innocent or not, you lose honor. I mean, just to be accused of committing a crime is fairly bad. Defeating monsters, was experience points additions there per 2,000 experience points. You'd have to beat up something pretty special to get pretty good honor points for all characters. A heroic death. Which would be perfect for 5e campaigns because you double, triple up on those because you get knocked down to 0 in a fight and somebody just casts heal. Well, there's my plus 10 points. Healing word on me real quick so I can jump back up and fight some more and die again.
I want to say this. I hope for a heroic death. So this mirrors. I think every man's life in a way, and it happens to be codified in, Oriental Adventures.
What's that joke? I want to die in my sleep like my grandfather, not screaming in terror like his passengers. Yeah.
Right. Or it's better to burn out than to fade away. Or,
murder of a family member, -3. That's all you lose 3 points for murdering a family member? Come on, really? Well,
I think that's the murder of a family member because you didn't stop it. Right.
Yeah, I think so.
I think.
In medieval Europe, that was how you became king, because you killed your brothers. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, that would
yeah.
fall under the -30 for treason.
Okay. Yeah, but
Yes, yes. I
everybody you
think if you
committed treason
murder a
against,
family member, you're
yeah,
probably pretty toast.
everybody you committed treason against is dead. So what's the point, right? Yeah. And it applied to some of these other ones too. You got your Shukenja, you get points, honor points for, healing and curing, for removing a curse, right? Here is something that I noticed about, and I don't do this. One of my house rules is I give experience points for players doing things their character would do.
Mhm.
If a cleric heals somebody, he doesn't get any extra special points over and above anybody else. He just experience points for the gold and stuff that comes in with it. So here's where you're giving a reward in addition to experience points for playing your character. You improve or decrease your honor as a result of it. I think it's an excellent addition to encourage players to play the class that they've got.
Yes. Yeah, instead of trying to mix it all, like it's one of 5E's problems is like there's too much class mixing and blurring of distinctions. But I also like if you look under the strange animal ones, being recognized as Henga yokai when in human form. So I like that they already noticed that there's a problem with the furries and that you want to keep them disguised during the game.
Yeah, but on the other hand, all you got to do is perpetrate a humiliating prank on an enemy. You'll use your +1. Now, I'll bring this up because the first ever Dungeon Master I ever played a game with, one of the player characters that he would allow you to have was a leprechaun. And I know this is something that's a sore subject with you, but here we go right here. We can be leprechauns, and this is a way of handling leprechauns to get X for pranks, right?
Yeah.
And some of the other ones, your Kensai losing a duel versus an NPC. Oh man, you can't let those.
Yeah, that's bad.
Yeah.
And if I can take a step back to that murder of a family member -3, if we look, I just happen to look higher in the table, avenging murder of a family member is +5. So it does seem likely to me, I could be entirely mistaken, but it does seem likely to me that murder of a family member under your watch gives you a -3, and avenging of that family member gives you a +5, which results in a net +2, right? So
Yeah.
I think the point of it is I think you need to look through this entire table. It probably suffers the same editing proclivities or whatever we
Well, I
might
think
say
it's just
with the rest of AD&D,
my
right?
copy of the scan may not look. Pluses and minuses aren't coming up like they should. Maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
Right, but they could have, basically what they could have done is they could have taken this table and made it a little bit more user friendly,
Yeah.
to where you wouldn't have to scan through the whole thing to see the way particular pieces interact with each other.
Positives and negatives in a separate table. And here's a good
Right.
point right here. Joe Kaufman brings up, it seems strange that a Wujen, who is mostly unconcerned with honor, is subject to this portion of the table for all characters. Well, yeah,
Well-
correct. I mean, all characters, they would be in there.
Yeah, but it makes sense to me because this is the character's relationship to the world. So even if that person isn't particularly concerned about the honor, this is how the world sees that person. So if he's done all these awesome things, you think of like Gandalf from Lord of the Rings. He's just going around from town to town, but the hobbits still like the dude because he makes fireworks and there's always parties when he comes. So his honor is high as far as the hobbits are concerned. Whereas like they don't know the ruffians that move into Bree, but they're squinty eyed and they don't like them. So they have lower on the honor because they haven't done the awesome things. I do have a question for you guys, though.
Yes.
Now, if you're DMing this, would you tell your players what their honor score is, or would you keep it secret?
Ooh, that would be something that would require a little bit extra bookkeeping on my side, but I could see doing it that way. Keep the honor a little bit secret because they wouldn't really know this. They would gauge their honor based on how they're being reacted to.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yep. I agree completely.
Yeah.
Just like I'm not going to let and I faced some contention about this in the past, but I basically feel alignment systems or honor systems or any of these types of social systems in AD&D have the effect that the player and the character are going to think that they are playing a specific alignment, but the DM is going to know. So there are going to be two alignments or two honor systems at play. There's going to be the alignment that the character or the player thinks his character is, and then there's going to be the alignment that the DM knows that that guy is. And the same thing in real life, really, not to bring real life into it too much, but in real life, I might think I'm a good person and everybody around me might think that I'm a bad person. So honor and alignment to me are the same thing. I would never reveal an alignment shift to a player, even if there were a quantified point system associated with it, as in honor, and I would never reveal the honor to a player. Now, if the player sought out counsel or something like that to try to get a better idea of how other people perceive them, sort of the medieval version of a shrink, then perhaps I know. I think I'm great and I'm a wicked person, or I'm a wicked person and you guys think I'm great. I'll take either one.
Oh, I like
Yeah,
it. Oh,
but I don't reveal it. No. No, honor should be abstract and the character should figure that out.
yeah,
The player.
excellent point to this. Excellent point to this. Some of these things that one of the things that Dungeons and Dragons has done over the years is foist a lot of stuff off of the dungeon master onto the player characters, and this should be one of those things that the dungeon master keeps track of, right? And he plays that when he plays the NPCs that they're interacting with. Could it be that they got a bad reaction roll? Yes, it could be. But it could also be that your honor has been soiled significantly to the point where it doesn't matter what their reaction rolls are, you're going to get reacted to poorly, period, end of statement. Yeah.
And, you actually bring up a good point there too with like morale. The player character is not necessarily going to know how the henchmen or the hirelings feel about him. There's going to be a reaction adjustment, a morale or a reaction check, a morale check, and those sorts of things. And discerning players will be able to figure that out at a certain point in time. But part of the mystery to me is understanding or not being able to understand how your character fits into the world. That's part of the role assumption of it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, like with the henchmen, you can see if you're not paying them anything, like that's not going to go well.
Right.
You should have an idea if like 3 of the other henchmen got killed, like the ones who are alive aren't going to be too happy. But it's an interesting phenomena where I think this table is incredibly helpful for the DM because it actually does quantify what these things are worth. But in no way, shape, or form should the players know, because they're going to be like, oh, okay, well, my family was murdered, so I need to do like 3 of these other things as like mini quests in order to get my honor back up. Like that's what you don't want.
Like min-maxing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it almost makes the point that this would serve better as a flowchart in certain areas, a flowchart specific to the DM, But yeah, I mean, I agree. I think from a role playing perspective, of course, the guy who allows his family to get murdered or whatever is going to feel a loss of honor, and he's going to understand sort of the way his society, whatever it might be, looks down on that, and then he's going to, you know, pursue his own endeavors to correct that wrong. But that doesn't mean that everyone else thinks that whatever he does, let's take Death Wish or something,
Mm.
you know, Charles Bronson goes out and shoots everybody. That doesn't mean that everybody, well, there's plenty of people without a brain, but people with a brain love that he goes out and shoots everybody, and people who don't have one don't.
There's some good comments we can bring into this one, right? I like this one here. My Boot Hill hybrid game, there is stature, very similar. Certain score for regions, which I guess Hurt Yang's good explanation for perceived social aspect of honor. No. And Boot Hill game is perfect. Another example where with the public perception of you is based off a lot of the things that you had done. And a lot of it could be erroneous.
Yep.
Yeah. Wyatt Earp could be the superhero, and then he goes into a bar and he gets drunk and falls over and gets the hell slapped out of him or something, and then he don't remember it the next day, but everybody else does.
Mm-hmm. Or the guy who's blamed for a killing or something somewhere, and
Right.
that's a common theme of westerns, right?
Yes.
And we all know a lot of
I'm sorry, guys. I'm gonna have to go.
Yep.
I know you
yes,
got something else you
I
got to
would.
take care of. Glad to have you
Yeah,
here.
I would love to hang out in this because I'm really enjoying it. But I'll love the other thing too.
We'll talk bad about you for the rest of the evening. So yeah.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so. That's a perfect example of me thinking that my honor is better than it is while not knowing what's going on behind the scenes. And I appreciate you guys. I appreciate you, Yang. I appreciate you, great old ones. Thank you.
No, thanks for joining us for what time you had. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
All right, all right. So you and I will talk a little bit here, but here we go. I like this kind of the suggestion here. If a tree falls in the woods, sort of, if no one witnesses things, how would it be affected? It seems like karma. But I think this is exactly how you would have to play this. This is a social standing of sorts.
Yeah.
So if it's not witnessed, it's unknown. You could be the serial killer of the town, but everybody thinks because you saved a dog's life, that you're the most fantastic person. There's where your honor comes from, is everybody saw you save that dog's life. They didn't see you, killing all those other citizens. So
yeah, that's it. And like, if you look into, even present, like the like Mexican mariachis and stuff, they'll get hired by all these crime syndicates to write stories about like their deeds, like, I killed 50 men in a gun battle. So like, I don't know, you could get yourself into a situation where, especially once you get into domain play, maybe somebody's trying to muscle in on your territory and you have to pump up your image. So you're paying the bards some big money.
You could do that too. That's where the dime store novels and all that kind of stuff came through in the Old West. Most of those gunslingers were not that good.
No. And I like to point out too, if you look at some of these, like marrying into higher birth rank family.
Sure.
Let's see. There was defeating an ancestral enemy, ancestral family feud. Like a lot of these things are absolutely fantastic idea generators, especially for the DMs. Like if you're on the low to no prep side, it's like, okay, your family's rival comes in. So to me, this is where like backstory actually becomes useful from a play setting, because this is sort of like how a person's backstory like can actually, in an organic way that doesn't make it, like the tragic life story of Bozo the Rogue, and make it fun.
They're all that way, unfortunately, right? And I don't need a trilogy of novels on your backstory. I just need a few sentences as where you
Yes.
came from, what you're doing, and why you're out doing these sorts of things. And then I can work with that kind of stuff, right? This provides some extra little pieces
Hmm.
for the player to give me some things to work from, or I could create some things for them. But you get more engagement out of your players if some of the stuff that's going on is for them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Not just a generic game that everybody's in, but some, hey, you know, that so and so came out of my backstory. This is pretty cool, kind of thing. Yeah. Especially with new players, you'll get a lot more, you'll hook new players easier if they seem to be involved in it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's see, we talked about honor awards. What else did I want to go into? Okay, here we go. Let me bring this on. Here's where I think they kind of went off the rails. Martial arts. Being a martial arts expert, here you go. I don't think this level of detail in the game was necessary. You didn't go into this level of detail in sword fighting or anything of that nature, battle in the original game. So drilling down this deep into hand to hand fighting, basically, well, I mean, you can use weapons, but for the most part, martial arts, if you believe all the legends and stuff, and a lot of the stories are somewhat true, was developed as a means for the peasantry to defend themselves, right?
Hmm.
You didn't need to drill down to this level of detail, in my opinion.
Yes, it kind of bogs the game down. Now, I will say, like in a few instances, it's good, like doing 5e playtesting. There's issues where naturally there's no way you can restrain someone. Like you can't put them in a headlock. You can't you can't cause them to pass out. You can't do some Brazilian jiu-jitsu moves to arm bar them, so then your other teammates can come over and tie them up. And to me, that's a big negative for the game. So I think to some extent there's there should be a little, it needed to be beefed up a little more on the unarmed combat, but I think this is like way too much. This is like, oh, I'm going to use this overhead swing movement for this and that. It's like, nah, unless it's a super move, like you shouldn't have it. It complicates and bogs down the combat,
Making
which
combat a little more complex than it really needs to be. Yeah, I mean, if you want to narrate it that way, go for it. You rolled your die, you hit. Well, when you jumped across the room, you were in a spinning roundhouse kick and landed the blow, and thus got max damage. Perfect,
sure.
right? But you don't
And
necessarily have to roll for that on the table or anything like that.
and I think this is a place where uh, uh, our good friend, the Dungeon Delver, would disagree, since he doesn't like to make people roll for things. But like, this is the part where you make them roll like a dex check. If you say like, well, I want to jump up off this table and do like Chun-Li's hurricane kick from Street Fighter. Like, okay, well, it's more complicated than a normal attack. So like, all right, roll to see if you can do this acrobatic thing.
Mhm.
I'm okay with that. But I think so much specification. Part of the issue is you see this with pretty much every version of D&D, whereas the original in that numbered series, it's pretty lost the word, but it's not complicated. It's very simple.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it's like there'll be like a 0.5 version where they add way too much complexity that doesn't help anybody.
Ooh, sounds like Unearthed Arcana. I'm sorry. Did I bring that up again?
Yeah, that's true. And you look at the same thing with 3 and 3.5, and now 5 and 5.5.
Well, Well, I'll give you a counter argument for 3 to 3.5. 3.5 fixed some things in 3 that were broken.
Sure.
But yeah, I guess that would be the one exception to the rule where it added extra complete. Now, when they went to 4, they went totally off the rails. But,
Yeah. Well, I mean, if we're going to be fair, the current version 5.5, which nobody likes, it did fix a few things that were not great in the 2014 5e, but overall it's worse. And I'm sure, I'm sure Unearthed Arcana and would have fixed some things in 1e, but overall the effect was not great.
No. Let's see. Here we go. Martial arts gets an innate number of extra attacks, and special maneuvers cost proficiencies moving forward.
See, and again, like if this is the monk class, like I don't have as big a problem with it because it's like their special move. But when everybody gets to do it, then it's like, then it just bogs things down.
Yeah, making combats a little bit too complicated where they didn't need to be.
Yeah. And like, can you imagine if you had to figure out for like 5 henchmen versus like the 15 enemies you've got on there, like all this extra stuff? No way.
Nope. Wait a minute, man. We'll be back next week for the finish off this fight.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's see. Cool. Let me grab the next thing. Now, like other books, open. They added art.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Now this is excellent art. But it's also my understanding that a lot of what people consider to be, real traditional weapons were just made up stuff for kung fu movies. To a certain degree, a bunch of them are, but a lot of it was improvised weapons from the peasantry. They used their grain threshers as your flail, right? But that's for the most part.
Sure, that's nunchucks and the 3-piece rod.
Mm-hmm.
That's all that was. Sai was for digging holes that you would then put a seed into.
Oh, nice.
And it also, and the curved things on the side are because you could drag it through the dirt, and then it would have that central channel that you could, just pat over.
Uh-huh. See, I knew I brought the right guy in to talk about some of these.
And some of them are like the man catcher was a real thing. Tetsubo, I think is just
club.
I think that's just a club with some probably would have been like brass nails
stuff on it. Yeah, nails.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah, and I mean the rest are pretty much were real, as far as I can tell.
Some not too bad. Now, the shuriken seemed a little tough to believe in, but
I don't know. I mean, Japanese people claim it was. I wasn't there.
And I wasn't there either. So not really known for sure.
Yeah, I don't know why you try those instead of just throwing a knife.
Because they had pointy parts everywhere, which would kind of hurt you a little bit too if you jammed your hand in your pocket to grab something real fast.
Yeah.
Nice pictures of these different arrows. Now, why didn't that end up? I think it's probably a little bit overboard on some of the arrows, but why didn't they go into AD&D? Why didn't you see these sorts of things in there? Because they existed in Europe stuff as well. Yeah. And there's one thing on here that I like that is missing from D&D that I think should have been included there was the pellet bow.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree.
There's your cleric weapon right there. Because they can't use crossbows or bows to begin with, but they could certainly use a pellet bow, right? There's your ranged weapons. Why not? Right? They existed. They, they
Yeah,
were, it was a hunting weapon for the most part in Europe. And most of these are hunting weapons and stuff here
yeah.
too as well. So or
You know,
other tools. Yeah.
I don't really see why you couldn't or wouldn't take a good number of these weapons and just plop them in your standard D&D campaign.
Sure.
You know?
They fit. I mean, some of these things, monsters do some of the similar functions to some of these things. Why not give the
Yeah.
player character what's good for the goose is good for the gander, right? Why not give some of these things um, to your player characters as well? Let's see, Joe Kaufman. If a monk gets a style of martial arts for weapon and gets to be level 9, they have 4 attacks around plus a d6 plus 1 damage, plus 4 damage from weapons as a monk, plus weapon damage roll. Yes.
Mhm.
Monks in D&D, the higher they get, the nastier they become. And even though they're really, I think they're very weak on hit points. If you're going to play a monk in my game, I'll use the one out of Dragon Magazine number 53. I replace the one that's in a player's handbook with that one. There's my house rule. They're somewhat weak on defense, somewhat weak on hit points to start with, so it's hard to survive as a monk to begin with. But right away, they get a chance on stunning an opponent, which is pretty powerful. If you can stop the enemy from beating on you for a round, that's a big plus.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Anything see on here that you would have liked to have seen that is maybe missing?
Well, I mean, yes. There's a ton of other weapons that aren't that I don't really see. Like if it's going to be Oriental adventure as opposed to like Japanese adventures, I don't see a Chinese Dao, which looks very much like a saber. I don't see any swords like for cavalier type characters. I mean, I guess technically the katana, but the katana was
that's
yeah. If you look more like at the Mongols, who were all about horse combat, they have
basically a saber or a scimitar would be the closest equivalent as far as that goes.
Yeah, exactly. So missing some of those. Let's see. They do have. It looks like they have the nine segment chain whip. I don't see the meteor. Oh my god, what's it called? Not the meteor whip, but it's basically like Jackie Chan in Shanghai Nights used a weapon like this. It's basically a rope, and you either have like a large heavy ball on it, and you're like swinging it, and it's not quite a whip because like you're directing it, like I'm shooting it straight at you, or maybe I'm having it so it comes over and down. Like that would be a cool whip to include. And a part of its function is to wrap people up. So if you had something that could, potentially immobilize the enemy, speaking of stunning.
Well, the whole thing for dishonor using a ninja weapon stinks. Shuriken falls under that. Wouldn't that be like using dishonorable weapons? So I mean,
yeah. Well, it's like poison in AD&D 1E.
Yeah, poison. Well, a lot of it was up to the game master to determine, but I play it from the standpoint the poisoning people is not an honorable way of fighting with them.
Yes,
it's just my thing.
People, yes. Although I've had questions about animals, like if I try to poison a dragon, is that really evil? Or an owlbear?
He's trying to. Some dragons are trying to poison you.
Certainly, poisoning a leprechaun cannot be bad.
Oh, well, I think does it have a face? I mean, no flying guillotine, really?
Yes. That would be cool.
If I remember exactly what he's talking about, that's got to be the goofiest looking thing I've ever seen in a kung fu movie. No shallow spade seemed an oversight.
Yep.
Are we talking like shallow spade as in a shovel? Or
you see monks using them sometimes. Have you ever seen or read The Journey to the West? There's well, not the monk, but there's another character, Sandy, who has like it's It's basically a spade, but again, it would be a peasant weapon.
Okay.
You know, like a it'd be like another kind of pole arm. I can't believe Gary missed that one.
Well, remember, this wasn't written by Gary. He just
Oh,
put
that's
his
true.
name on the front.
That's
Yeah.
true.
Meteor, hammer, and
Yeah.
rope dart. Okay.
That's it.
But I think that is on here, right here. There's the, what is that? The, I don't know if you can't see me poking at it. The Kyohetsu Shogi looks like a rope knife.
Similar.
Yeah.
A
Kawanaga, same thing with hooks, but yeah.
Yep.
It's got a weighted end.
A good movie to watch if you're interested in any of these is actually Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Okay. I'll have to watch that one. Yeah. Shovel and spade was originally used as shovel for traveling monks bury the dead along the road. Became a weapon.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, how did they get to be dead that we needed to bury them, right? So yeah.
And the only other one that I don't see is the Chinese had like a spear that was 10 foot long, so it'd be like a pike, effectively.
Sure. All right. Then the other one, more art. I think it's excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think this is really, really good. Nice, good drawings of the armor and stuff. Now, again, this doesn't look Chinese to me.
I mean, there's a similarity to
Similarity, but yeah.
it. But this is definitely Japanese.
And one of the things that you understand is that when you were looking at a lot of this stuff, not much of it was made of metal. A lot of it was made out of things like bamboo slats and things like that too, as much as it was made out of metal.
Right? And paper.
Because it was an abundant material for them to use.
And there's also paper.
Paper, laminated
some had paper armor, and I've seen like modern testing who said like, yeah, it was surprisingly good. Now, you take a couple slices and you got to replace the whole armor, but it's pretty good for stopping some hits.
Armor, I would imagine. Well, paper probably wasn't all that cheap back then, this particular time, but a lot cheaper than metal, which was a little harder to get a hold of, certainly. And
East Asia and Japan were very wooded. Mm-hmm. So that's one reason why like paper and paper currencies and everything developed there, because they just had all sorts of trees laying around.
Well, and bamboo, being a grass, grew like wildfire everywhere, so it was easily replaceable, easy to find. And I think it was a good idea. And it gives you a little insight as to what types of armor and what kind of protection and stuff that you could get out of them.
Yep.
So, excellent picture. Well, that's about all I brought up to talk with. I don't know if you had any other points that you wanted to bring up in addition to what I kind of.
I would say yes. There were a couple things. One is like, if you look at the spells, first of all, it's a fantastic smorgasbord of new spells. One thing I hate is like, it's like magic missile, but fire. It's magic missile, but ice. Like you're just reflavoring something that's there. They had a lot of fairly original spells in this book.
See if I can actually load it. But the PDF I have may be too big for that.
It's okay. But one thing that I think they really missed out on is, so in Western school of thought, you have the 4 elements, right? But it's kind of like, in general, one isn't necessarily better than another, or one doesn't defeat another. But in Chinese, they have the 5 movements, which was translated poorly by Jesuits into 5 elements. So you have fire, earth, and then you get metal, water, and wood. So it's a little bit different, but each of those has a relationship to the other. So in some of the spells, it will say like, oh, this is a fire type spell, this is an earth type spell, it's a wood type spell, but they never really explain the relationship between the five. And if you did, you would be able to say like, if wizards are dueling, and let's say one wizard is casting a fire type spell and the other one's casting a metal type spell, the metal type spell would be able to resist the fire spell. It would win over on it.
Okay.
And you could have different relationships, which would make Magic potentially play differently. And I think it's really an opportunity that they missed. And I don't know if it's because they didn't understand it or
They tried to make it fit with what everybody remembered from D&D.
yeah. So I mean, yeah, because like let's see. I see their level 4 dimension door earth. Number 9, fire enchantment fire. So they're like kind of using it, but kind of not. And then they have air. Like I think if they would have gone the 5, they would have had a very unique way to do spells, and that was just opportunity lost.
Wood. What is a wood? You got
Yeah.
air, earth, fire, water, and wood.
And there should be metal, which it doesn't seem like.
Let's see,
Well, they probably kept air and left metal out. And so like if you understand the like those are all metaphors, they're not actual elements. So like wood is
nature,
growing outward
water.
in all directions, metal is contracting. Fire is heat and goes upwards, water is cold and goes downwards, and earth is the center that generates everything else. So if you understand those relationships, you can then sort of create a spell like the way spells interact with each other's, which would have made for really neat effects. But they didn't.
No, they tried to kind of drop them into the way D&D had things set up.
Yeah.
In that.
Which is unfortunate because if you think about it, if you had like you could have great adventures where armies from the west come in to armies from the to fight armies from the east, and their magics work in different ways. Like, wouldn't that be awesome?
Yeah, that would be excellent. That would be fun. Yeah. Oh, how do I counter that? I've never encountered it before. What's and same thing on the other side. Ooh,
yeah.
What is that coming at me? Yeah. How do we deal with this? Would have been an excellent part of it. Rewrite the whole magic system based on that particular culture and that philosophy of magic over there, and not try and pigeonhole this stuff into the way D&D's magic system was set up.
Yeah, I mean, and it's like with some of the other stuff, I think at some points they're trying a little too much to replicate what people know in D&D, as opposed to like if it had a little different use, it would be it would feel a lot bigger, I think.
Mm-hmm. Well,
yeah Gonzalo, you're right. And actually
philosophies on warfare, religion, how things work within the culture and all this kind of stuff. Definitely a clash of cultures there.
Yeah. And that, to me, that's like the most interesting part about Oriental Adventures, is like it should be a clash. It should be culture shock for someone to play in this world if they've only played in medieval fantasy. Like you want that fish out of water feeling.
Yeah. Now, Catholic priest versus Aztec shaman. Now, this would be if you wanted to play this in a Well, shaman or here he says both are clerics. However, shaman are more along the lines of combination of magic user and cleric together, more so than just straight cleric. At least in my experiences, of based on how they work, the witch doctor and things like this.
Yeah, I call them a little closer to druids, but
Okay,
or how druids were in 1E. Let's put it
sure,
that way.
but the same thing: Catholic
Yeah.
priest versus the druid kind of thing. If you were to run a game and include the magic related to that kind of stuff together, it would be something else too. Now, it's totally outside the realm of what we're talking about here, but the Aztecs, the Central American cultures really believed in shapeshifters and all that kind of stuff. It's a big part of their culture. Yeah.
And did you know Aztecs actually fought samurai?
Really?
Yes, it actually happened. So Spain had taken over, Latin America, right? And not too, I think it was like 20 years or maybe 40 years after they conquered all of Mexico, there were still a lot of Aztecs there. And Spain hired them as mercenaries to go fight in the Philippines. And what was happening in the Philippines? They were being attacked by Japanese pirates. So the Japanese were trying to expand into the Philippines. So it was sometime like late 1500s, early 1600s, I can't quite remember, where the Spanish took all these Aztec over to an island where they had to fight samurai.
Wow. Interesting.
So, there's no reason you couldn't have, you couldn't be mixing and matching like that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'll have to look that one up. Here's a good one from Joe Kaufman, though, here. The lack of turn undead is unfortunately, and protection from evil comes in way late. Now, they did believe in evil and all of that kind of stuff. And as my understanding is The Walking Dead really wasn't part of this culture. Evil spirits more so than anything else. The dead didn't get up out of the grave and walk around to the extent that we believe it. The same thing. It's like in medieval world it wasn't until way in the post Renaissance where a vampire was actually an undead creature. It was actually a spirit for the longest time. Same, and as I understand it, the same thing with this culture here. For the most part, evil spirits were more so than anything else. If the dead person rose to life, he was inhabited by an evil spirit, as opposed to just the dead walking around.
Yeah, generally, they did have vampires as well, and they had zombies, but there's real life historical fact to why that happened. When they were carrying someone like to the graveyards, they would tie the bodies onto a pole and then tie the pole onto themselves. So if you looked from a distance, it would look like that body was bouncing up and down, which is why they say dead people jump in Chinese mythology. Okay. And that's where like vampires came from. But you're right. Sometimes, you would have people come back from the dead, but it's because some spirit inhabited them.
Right. So turn undead isn't as important as stuff for this particular culture as that goes. Turn undead kind of came from the what is a good word like for it?
Walking skeletons and.
Well, it wasn't really something. Priests didn't stand there. Well, this came out of the vampire myths where you held up your cross and professed your belief in your religion or whatever, and the undead turned around and walked away the other direction. That's where that kind of thing came from.
Yeah.
So it wasn't as medieval as people would like to think. But yeah, here's where you would go. This is how you would take over you would bring your army of zombies with you.
Yeah.
And skeletons and stuff, and they had no way of dealing with it, right? Oh yeah. There he goes. I would run a no magic roll master campaign set in the world of Apocalypto. Yeah, that would work.
There was a good supplement the Basic Expert did a few years ago called MacWeedle, which is basically an Aztec set campaign which I think was based on basic rules or the white box.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of the basic expert stuff is all his stuff is based on the white boxes and just rewrites of that. Yeah, and I saw his advertising for that particular supplement that you're talking about. It looked pretty interesting. Not from the standpoint that I would want to run it or nothing, but from the standpoint that he extended the game system over to that particular setting.
Yeah, I have the PDF somewhere. It's really cool actually, and it redoes the religion a lot to where it's actually useful. I mean, part of the reason is he wrote it like a few years ago, as opposed to 1980. So like if you're writing it, I hate the term for modern audiences, but if you're writing it for modern audiences, you need to know like the kinds of things they don't know, and you sort of need to like nudge them towards how they should be interacting with gods and seeking, approval and favors and stuff.
Yeah, got to be explaining all of that stuff to them. Exactly. Cool. Well, I think we had a great talk on Oriental Adventures. Was there anything else that you had?
No, other than, if you've never read Oriental Adventures, even if you don't want to run them, even if you're not a big 1E person, it's a fantastic book to read. There's a lot of resources in there that you can really lift and put into your own stuff and really make your world a lot more flavorful. And if you're interested in seeing how we ended up with D&D 5e, you can start to look at a lot of stuff like this and see, at least 2 subclasses for thief, and they both make sense. They both seem fun to play. So there you go.
What is this? Oh, fill the player my way game doesn't get the culture aspect. Manner is a good topic to read on page 141. What does he see? Let's take a look at 141 real quick, see if I can.
All right.
If it matches up exactly. Let's see. Religion, law, and justice.
Oh, that's 140.
Wow, okay, 141 doesn't match up exactly. Manners. People in character, it is noticed by Gaijin, are extraordinarily polite as a rule. Yes. More so than Canadians. Yes. Yeah, they often go to ridiculous pains to behave in the correct manner. I don't know if you're familiar with him. There's a comedian. His nickname is Sunshine. God, what's the guy's name? I can't remember the guy's name. He's absolutely hilarious. I watch a lot of his stuff. And he talks about the Japanese culture and stuff and describes how he went over there to learn and study and become a comedian and everything. And manners are a big part of his jokes because the way they just go to absurd lengths to try and polite and be more polite than you when it comes down to it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing that so the Japanese will call it like giri, and the Chinese will call it like guangxi, is like your relationship to other people, which is part of what they're getting at with the honor system. But like in Japan for Valentine's Day, women should bring chocolate into like the men in their life, like either classmates or teachers or coworkers. They should give them all chocolate, but they don't want to do that. They don't want to spend their money, so they give absolute crap chocolate, which is called giri choco, which means obligation chocolate. Like, okay, I don't want to give this to you, but I'm going to give it to you.
Because I have to, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, you can sort of think of it in the Western world, like if you have nephews and nieces who are kind of like dicks or they're getting older, you're like, well, do I have to give them something for Christmas? Or like if they're getting married, like, all right, how much money do I really have to spend on a gift? So it's like kind of that thing where, yes, politeness is very important. And if you have players who are smart enough to shop owners and guards. Like if you ever smart off to a guard, they should be pounded immediately and put in jail.
Yep.
But like there's whole ways of like how you should interact with other people in your area. And this was actually very, very important when it was like a village setting, right? Because you didn't want to start an ancient family feud with, the Smiths next door. So you always kept it like, okay, they came to my kid's wedding, so now I have to go to their kid's wedding. It's one of those things. So I think manners is great flavor for any kind of campaign, and the fact that you can switch it between when your players travel to a new country, a new civilization, they would have different manners which your players must then learn.
Sure. Right. More. And the good part about that kind of stuff, including these sorts of things like this in the games, is if you give players something from real life that they can relate to, you will find they will get into the game more. They've got something that they can fixate on because it's familiar to them. Yeah.
Yes. And that's like, you're talking about the drawings for the armor and stuff.
Right.
They 100% had to put those in here because the armor is very foreign to Western audiences.
Mm-hmm.
So if you didn't put that in there and you didn't illustrate it, people wouldn't really understand what the differences would be. This is something that I totally agree. If you want to be a good DM, like these are the kind of things that are important to whatever world you're in, to flavor the world. It needs to have some grounding in reality, or else people can't relate to it.
Sure. I hear a question from Gonzo. I guess he missed the first part of it. Now, we brushed over this, right, when we were talking about, let me go ahead and pull that page back up. Oh, come on. Where did it go? Can't presenter invite. Oh, image file. Oh, it's because I went to a different folder. Right, when we were talking about the Bushi, right? And you mentioned something briefly about Ronin.
Yeah.
Maybe we can go a little bit more detail on that one, because that is definitely something that, I mean, I've heard a whole lot about it. Was it Saberhagen that wrote the book about the Ronin? Man, what the heck was it? Dark Ronin or something like that. It was a series was basically about this same sort of thing, right? Ronin weren't specifically mentioned as such in this game, but we mentioned real quick when we mentioned Bushi being Ronin. But I think wouldn't you consider Ronin from that standpoint to be like, you got fallen paladins who just become, all of a sudden, if they lose their alignment, now they're just fighters from there on out, they would lose their powers and stuff like this. Yeah. Wouldn't a Ronin kind of be a fallen samurai, which would be, you're no longer the cavalier class now. But you still retain all your skills and abilities. You've lost a lot of honor to a certain degree as well.
Yeah, and there's all stuff like that that are good, and like
that's missing out of this game.
I think so, because especially when you're looking at a game, like it would be hard in a lot of these settings to get. I mean, people traveled more than you'd think, but in order to say like, hey, leave your job, come adventuring, like that would be hard to get people to do. Like if you're a samurai, you have this specific place. Like you're not going to leave unless your master says, okay, go with this party. But if you're a Ronin, like I got nothing better to do, I'll go do some adventures where I nurse my hatred to the man who killed my master. And I do think there were a lot more I don't know. See, like they could kind of be somewhere between Wujen and the Sohei, which would be like shamans, right? There were a lot more wandering shamans, um, who, like, especially when you get into the Middle Ages, you really start to get organized belief systems developed where there's like, okay, there's a specific way you should perform this ritual or that. In Japan, at that point, is already into, it's got Shinto, which is kind of shamanistic. It has Buddhism, which has been pretty well entrenched since about the year 1000. And then you start to get Christianity creeping in too. So, like, if you had shamans who were pretty much like just, I don't know, almost like a mix between a proto cleric and maybe a druid, would
Okay.
be a fun class too, because they would also potentially be traveling a lot. And then there were, if you know the history of Japan, there were different ethnicities on there. Like there's still some Ainu way up north, but they more or less got rid of them all. So if you had like that, that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, I learned about ethnicities when I went to Okinawa.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like if they had incorporated some of that a little more, I think it would have been interesting, and it makes the generic human more of an interesting class too.
Because you've got more variety for the human to be. Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, cool. This was definitely a fun run into Oriental Adventures. If you got it, hold on, let me bring this back up. There we go. Bam. Hey, here we are. Back to the cover. Good art on the cover.
Yeah.
Kind of gives
Not
you
sure
a
who did
sense
that.
of what's going on there. Here's where some of those medieval monsters come from too, like the Kirin and stuff like this. But yeah. Well, thanks for joining me and running through Oriental Adventures and stuff with me.
Thanks for having me.
Anything else you want to come on and yak about as far as first edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons go, I'll be happy to have you back on. I like bringing on people that are knowledgeable and speak intelligently, because clearly I need that assistance. But
I'll think of something.
Yeah, we got there's plenty more Orange Spine books and stuff that we want to go through. Lots of that stuff to get to. There's all kinds of stuff. We could be talking for years on first edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons and these different things.
Yeah, I mean they had so much great material, and a lot of the modules were just great. And anyone who really wants to get into writing stuff, even if you don't like AD&D 1E, it still behooves you to read them, to really see like what they were trying to get at back then. We have 50 years to say what worked and what didn't, and that can really help you writing your own stuff.
Mm-hmm. Great.
And there's still time to back Empire of the Undying Sun.
Yes, I brought you on here. Plug away at what you got. Let me pull this banner back up again. Please subscribe to Yang Zhou 4, because he killed off the other 3. He's got his own work that he wants to get done. Have a visit. You do explain what your stuff is about on your channel, correct?
on occasion. Okay. I'm gonna have to, where I'm nearing the end of writing the campaign guide, thank God. So when I do, I'm gonna leave the campaign open just a little while longer, and I will have some more videos. But if you like horror campaign guides for either 5e or 1e, and to my knowledge, this is the first whole new world setting for 1E in quite some time. You will, I think, really enjoy it. You've got creepy New England style. There's something in the woods. You have zombie invasions, swashbuckling pirate adventures. traveling through an empire that's sort of a mashup of Aztecs and ancient Egyptians and the Ottoman Empire, where there's a god that demands blood sacrifices. There are spirits that howl in the night on the desert plains, jungles teeming with life that want to eat your flesh, and ancient ruins that perhaps have magical items or certain death. You don't know. And before the end, your players will make a decision that changes the fate of the world forever.
Well, no pressure. Right?
No pressure.
Awesome. Yeah. Keep me up to date on all that stuff. We'll put it out there. If anybody else, again, all you guys out there, if you're not subscribed to Yang already, please go do so. Go do so. He's got some excellent stuff. Let me go back to comments. We got, says I backed, but I'm not sure I backed your modules. Okay.
Well, the modules are fun. They'll probably be available later at some point.
Cool.
There's also, I forget the number of modules. It's 10 modules or 12 modules that you can get that also, they fit in that world, or you could plug them into any other setting.
Cool. Well, since it's also for first edition, maybe someday we'll get you back here. We'll talk about that a little bit more too.
Sure.
All right. Well, let me go ahead and cut you loose for now, and I'll go ahead and close all this stuff down. Again, anybody got any questions, leave comments and stuff, questions or whatever, and if it doesn't get directly to Yang, I'll make sure that I can at least paraphrase it and send it on to him if you got questions specifically for him. Thanks for joining me again, Yang. Let me go ahead and
thanks for having
bring us back to my main page here. Where am I at here? There we go. Thanks for joining me here on Great Old Ones channel, talking about first edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. Again, next Thursday, I'll try and talk more about Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. There'll be more stuff coming. So please like and subscribe. Go visit Yang's channel. Go visit Doomsword's channel and stuff. And we'll do more Advanced Dungeons and Dragons next week. Thanks again.